Okay, so this is going to be a basic overview of my AU. Um, oops. So, where this AU is set is in Breath of the Wild, like during that era. Um, Here you can like see, um, it's not like in the Breath of the Wild map, it's actually northwest of it. In fact, the lower mountain range, this one over here, it actually connects to the mountain range that um, is by Rito Village in Breath of the Wild. So the basic story of this AU is that you are pretty much any of these races. You're pretty much a character from Breath of the Wild, like your own OC. And what happens is right after the calamity happens and stuff, like right after Link goes into the healing, um, the Shrine of Resurrection. I guess I'm gonna say this now, like spoilers and stuff for Breath of the Wild, I guess, even though I'm gonna try to avoid talking about the actual game, and for any other Zelda games and stuff that inspired this AU. So what happens is um, you find this tablet right after the calamity happens that tells you of this shrine in the northwest, um, that leads to like this prosperous land that the calamity and stuff can't get to, but only like the pure of heart and like the truly virtuous like can get to. So you find this tablet that tells you about this place. So you decide to go check it out. And when you go check it out, you there are a bunch of Hylians and stuff that are trying to figure out how the shrine works and stuff, while trying to avoid the calamity because, maybe if we can figure out how the shrines work and stuff, like, people can, like, avoid the calamity or something like that. And this shrine is, like, super broken. Like, the doors and stuff, you can get inside of it, but only, like, the small area that like Link kind of walks inside to get like teleported downwards. Like it doesn't do that though. Like the door swingy things and stuff that open, those don't exist. So and instead it's just this big waterfall that kind of goes down, and pretty much if you can notice over here, the actual like tablet reader has been pretty much broken. Um, this isn't like the accurate place of where it is. I just kind of found a good picture of like a shrine from the front, so I could kind of show how the water looks. Um, it's really neat because this like water kind of just like opens up for you when you show up with the tablet, and the Highlands and stuff like don't really care about what's behind it. Like they're trying to figure out like how the shrine works in general, and they haven't considered going past the water, which is on purpose because that's kind of like the shrine um, telling them, like you're not welcome here, like you're not allowed in here. This is like only for certain people that can get in. So when you show up with the tablet that they requested that you bring, you feel like this urge. You just kind of like feel this urge to leave the tablet for someone else and go into the waterfall. So what you do is you pretty much just like you do the equivalent of like throwing an octo balloon on it and just like tossing it out randomly somewhere for the next person to find because you believe that it'll find the right person. So you just kind of like do that and then enter in this waterfall, and then you're in this like huge world where it feels like a second, and all of a sudden next thing you know you just like wake up in like the middle of pretty much anywhere on the map that like it decides to drop you off. It's kind of like a random spawn thing, but you just kind of like wake up in this world, and as you can see from all the colors and like the names and stuff, there are different areas for different people. So like the green is kind of like neutral ground and stuff for everybody. And like territories and stuff don't really exist. Like everybody is welcome everywhere. It's just kind of like places and stuff for you to find your people. So like um, yeah, so like if you're a Gerudo and stuff and like you wake up over here, you can just be like, "Hi, I'm a Gerudo," and they'd be like, "Okay, here are a bunch of other people and stuff that share your like religion and your culture and things like that." But you're not like shunned there. It's not like the only place you can stay. Like if you're like, okay, cool, but I want to go over here and live with the Rito, you can. Um, so kind of the green is kind of like neutral ground for everybody. A quick explanation on the Zora freshwater and the Zora saltwater. My theory in Ocarina of Time is because they live in a lake, that's why in Wind Waker, why they had to evolve into the Rito, is because they can't live in salt water, just like freshwater fish in real life. Hence why they live in a lake, but and I'd like to think that there are like different like aspects. Like there's still Zora, and like they still have pretty much like the same cultures, like except a few things change. Um, like so, I'd like to think that like freshwater Zora live up in these lakes and in these rivers, and the saltwater Zora kind of like from Majora's Mask, how it's more of an ocean instead of a lake that they live in. Um, the Zora saltwater live like over here in kind of like this massive ocean like thing, because like this map is big. It's not as big as the Breath of the Wild map, but it's pretty stinking huge, like about as big as the Twilight Princess map. So like that's an actual mountain and stuff, and like that's an actual mountain, and that's a huge mountain range, and that's an entire desert, and that lake could be classified as an ocean if you really wanted it to. It's kind of like, the Great Salt Lakes and stuff, like how huge they are, but they're still lakes. So this could be classified as a lake, but it's like saltwater. So that's kind of like where the saltwater Zora live. This dark purple spot over here is kind of like where like the Twily and like the Lorulians and stuff would live, because this is supposed to be like a very open kind of like roleplay server idea for like stories. So like if you have a character who's a Twily, you would like probably live there. So like they exist in this game or in this story in this AU. It's kind of like this AU is kind of like an amalgamation of pretty much all the different Zelda games, but like it has a very strong base in Breath of the Wild. Like that's kind of where the main story is from. Um, Me and my friend who are writing this, he's still thinking of ways to like make it where the dark ones. It's pretty much for monsters probably the rule. We'll just be referred to the dark ones from now. The dark ones and stuff, how they kind of like showed up and how people accepted them, because well they couldn't get through the shrine if they weren't pure of heart, so that's why people don't really worry about them. This light purple up here is where the Rito would live. They get like this super small mountain, but like again because they're very like they're like merchants and stuff. You'll find them all over. This is just kind of like their main hub, kind of like Dragon Boost Island, how the Rito are like flying everywhere and stuff, doing their thing. But this is kind of like where they have their homes. Um, the orange, which stands out a lot, and I kind of regret using the color. This is where the Goron would live. They can go out a little bit farther than other people, hence like the kind of faded gray. Like you'd have to like be really good at surviving and stuff to kind of live here, because it's still like treacherous wilderness. Like it's not like it's not going to be a picnic to live here. Is kind of the thing. Up here in this corner are where the Gerudo live. They have kind of like this whole area, but again, they just live there and stuff because it's familiar and they know how to live there, and they want there to be room for everybody else, but they're still welcome, unlike Ocarina of Time and kind of Breath of the Wild, how they're closed off from everybody else. It's still very open and people are allowed in and out, and there's no Vi or Vo rules here either, which is really nice, because that kind of annoyed me in the game. Um, Here's like the main cities and roads. If you're a true Zelda fan, I say, having only played like 5 games, you'll kind of know where like all these different names come from based on characters, because like in Breath of the Wild, like in the Lost Woods, there's like Makar and like Saria and like Mido and all these things named after people. So I kind of took inspiration from that and named all these cities and stuff after characters from all over different Zelda games and stuff, based on the race. So like Japlos City, which is the saltwater Zora area over here. Um, it's based after one of the one of the band members. There we go. One of the band members from Majora's Mask. I think it's Japas is his name. And then there's like Rala City, which is up here, kind of like where the freshwater are, and that's based after Rallis from Twilight Princess, the prince. Komal Village, which is the Rito, have their little town and stuff. It's like at the peak and then at a lower elevation for other people. So like, it's kind of like the Goron, where um, like you'd have to be really good at surviving to live up here, but they've made it livable. That's based after Kamali from Wind Waker, the prince. Um, Aonoka Village for the Goron. I think that's the same name, just like a few letters off in Breath of the Wild. I need to double check because there's a lot of ideas that I've had I forget some of the details. Kawamakota Fortress, which is up here for the Gerudo. It's based after the Pirate's Fortress and the names of the sorceresses combined from Ocarina of Time. Xanta Outpost over here, it's based after Xant, but like not in a malicious way. Like it's just kind of like I thought it was a cool name, and I didn't want to name it like after Midna, 'cause that would have felt like a little too weird to like mix in, like kind of like less acknowledging the fact that like Twilight Princess, the Twilight existed there, and they're just kind of here, like fully acknowledging Midna. I feel would have been a bad move. And then over here is Hyrule Town, pretty much like one of the biggest areas. Like, and these aren't like the sizes of the cities. This is just kind of like this is where you're most likely going to find Hylians, and like up here is where you're most likely going to find Gerudo and things like that. So this yellow line that's terribly drawn, I probably should have used a different tool for it instead of just freehanding it. Um, this line that kind of like follows through the entire map, that leads to like a bunch of different areas and stuff. It's kind of like the main pathways and roads. There are like bridges and stuff over a lot of the bigger areas. And a lot of them I tried basing them off of like what real pathways would look like. So hence why they're kind of squiggly in some places, because like there might be like a dense forest and stuff like right here in this spot where this curve is, so that's why it goes at a curve instead of just like going straight. Um, that's kind of up to the reader slash OC role player to decide though, like what that would be, just to make it look a little more natural. I also tried basing a lot of like the branches and stuff off of real roads based on like would it be worth it to have it go up this way to connect to this one, or would it just be easier to walk if you had it branch off here and go up that way, just based off of like real roads and stuff and how you'd want to do it. Um, and then last on the maps are all the different landmarks and stuff. So like based on the color, it's like more significant for like each race. So like these light blue dots and stuff for the saltwater Zora, the colors are also based off of like a slightly darker version of the city color, so you can like tell what race it's for. Um, like all the little like indents and stuff and in the middle of like the lakes and things like that, those are probably like smaller villages and towns and landmarks and stuff, and just like different things for each of the races. So like over here for the Gerudo, like that could be like this smaller area over here could like be a religious place maybe, and like all the different Gerudo dots could be like things like for the seven heroines like in Breath of the Wild. So just those different dots and stuff have significance, and they can also be like for roleplay things outside of the major cities, which is really nice. If you don't want to be inside the cities, like if you want to be more in the world but still have like a place to fall back to, then that would be a good spot. Um, so I don't have all of the different like city pictures yet, and when I do, they'll probably be part of the major Dropbox file and stuff that I have for this AU, so people can look whether or not if it's a story or roleplay and stuff. If they're ever confused about what something is, hopefully there's enough info there for them to understand. So this would be like Anoka Village for the Goron and stuff, and like this place wasn't like fully populated when they like, because at first a bunch of people flooded to this area right as the calamity started, and then after people stopped being nice and like giving their tablets to other people and stuff, or just like not considering it, fewer and fewer people were able to get in, and eventually people just said, oh, it's not real. So, like, when they first arrived and stuff, places like this weren't, like, fully existent. Like, they had to carve out areas like this and things like that. Um, so, like, the Goron and stuff had to, like, dig and find a good magma well and stuff to, like, keep them warm and to do things like that. And, like, Kaum Kota Fortress here, the reason why it looks so bland is because they only had like so many materials to work with, and it's been like 50 years since the calamity, so like halfway through Link's sleep when you arrive, so things are like established and like the world is alive, but like it's still very new, so it still has that new wonder like feel, but it's like alive and like established enough not to be super boring. So this is based off of Gerudo Town from Breath of the Wild, but I tried changing enough aspects where it wouldn't look like exactly the same. So there's kind of that. And this one's really blurry based on the tool I used, and then when I saved it, I didn't save it correctly, so I can't go back and fix it, or I'd have to redo the entire thing, and I really don't want to because I have to finish all the other ones, so it's just going to be super blurry, so I apologize. This is Rala City. It's for the freshwater Zora, and as you can see, there's like different pathways and stuff that like lead up to shops and things like that for people who can't breathe underwater. And there's like water fountains and stuff for all that, kind of like the Zora armor, how it allows you to let go of waterfalls. So like you could do that. And if you know about Twilight Princess, there's kind of like this area underneath like the main city where it goes super deep, and that's kind of where all the Zora hang out, and like that's the area that you have to melt with the rock. Um, um, so up here, like up at the top of the bigger waterfall, that's kind of like where the chief would live, and of course they wouldn't have a king because like it's neutral ground for everybody, and like they don't want to have like royalty or they don't want there to be wars and stuff. So they were just like, let's just have like basic rulers and stuff to look after the people, but it's kind of like just a self-ran area, which is super unrealistic, but it's easier than trying to think of like royal families and designing them and stuff like that, because I'm lazy. So that the upper area would kind of be like a main meeting place for like higher powers and stuff, but they wouldn't have too much power. Um, so that's all I have for areas so far. Um, there is going to be a file for all the different music. Um, they're they're not that impressive. They're just kind of like soundtracks from a bunch of different um, a bunch of different Zelda games and stuff. Like Aonoka Village Days, just Ocarina of Time, Goron Village and stuff with like different pitches and different speeds, just to sound like unique but not like so crazy that like you don't really get it. And then hopefully I'll create a file so people could submit their characters and stuff. Like, um, my character Vess is a Gerudo priestess. Um, if you're ever in the roleplay and stuff with me, hopefully you will be able to see her interacting with other people and learn her backstory and kind of learn things about her. And an example of like NPCs and stuff, like Zoras and Hylians and like monsters and Twily and Gerudo. Um, Most of them are female because I'm only good at drawing female, and the pose reference that I was using, I liked it and it only had females, so that's kind of why that's there. Hopefully I'll be able to get more male characters in there. But that's kind of like all the people and stuff. Here are the city names, just in case you wanted to know them. There's Aonuk Village, which is Goron, Hyrule Town, Highlands, Japos City, Zora Seawater, Rala City, Zora Freshwater, Komkota Fortress, which is the Gerudo, Kamal Village, which is the Rudo, and Xanta Outpost, which is the Dark Creatures. That's just kind of so you know spelling if you ever need it. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have for the AU, which is I'm pretty proud of it. I like it, so yeah, there's gonna be a Dropbox, or at least the equivalent, so I don't have to spend money on this, in the description with all these different files and with a bunch of other like pictures and stuff. Like you'll get these pictures so you can examine them a little more closely for yourself, and check every once in a while, because once I start getting more cities done, like once I create Japos City, I'll put it there, and if you can request a theme too, you can say like this is kind of like the basic song, which is my character. Um, you can put it in there, and then I'll put it in the music and themes, so we can have it kind of like as the Breath of the Wild AU album. So yeah, that's pretty much what I have. Thank you for listening. Yeah.